Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll hold on for a few minutes until people start joining. Few minutes and we'll start, inshallah. Just a couple of more minutes, inshallah. One more minute and we'll start. Bi-idhnillah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Mohammed al-Nabi al-Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Insha'Allah ta'ala, today we are continuing with the Aqeedah series. And our subject of today is the subject of, or the problem of evil and the existence of God, the existence of the Creator. And this is a somewhat difficult subject, not from the intellectual point of view. Actually, other subjects might be tougher to argue and discuss. The issue of the problem of evil, or the problem of pain and suffering and the existence of the Creator, tends to be, spoken about from an emotional perspective rather than from an intellectual one. So the emotions tend to be much louder than thoughts and rationale. So it becomes difficult because somebody is suffering, or somebody sees somebody suffering, or somebody reads about somebody who's suffering or pain, or went through a very bad experience, and we are rationalizing it, quote unquote, in a cold fashion. So it becomes a bit of an emotional challenge rather than an intellectual challenge. And that's where the difficulty lies. Really, the argument itself from the point of view of what, disproving the idea itself, or discussing the idea itself, is not very challenging as far as I believe. But it is the emotional, interaction, or the emotional interference with the intellectual idea is really what makes it somewhat difficult to argue. But this problem, by the way, is not something that is recent by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, it was discussed by Greek philosophers. So from the time of the Greek philosophy, that's ancient philosophers addressed it. For example, Epicurus put the problem of evil as the following. So he said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, if there is an omnipotent creator, meaning infinite power, if there's an omnibenevolent being that's complete in mercy, complete in compassion, and omniscient God, meaning complete in knowledge. So he knows about everything that happens. He is, the most benevolent and the most compassionate and the most merciful and the most powerful. If that God exists, then evil should not exist. So evil should not exist because of what seems to be the contradiction, what appears to be as a contradiction between the fact he's the most merciful as well and most capable, most knowledgeable, and then opposite to that, there is evil. So there is evil in the world. And since there is no evil in the world, then there is no omnipotent, omniscient, God that does not exist. So God does not exist, and of course, that culture, that rationale, that way of thinking, if you wish, and we'll discuss it, insha'Allah ta'ala, in a bit more detail in a few minutes. That also part of the Greek philosophy that seeped into the mindset of Muslims and the Islamic discourse amongst Muslims. It seeped also amongst them, and it was never in the mainstream of what is called the Sunni Islam, but rather it was really primarily the Mu'tazila sect who adopted this idea about God, but it came under not the idea of the problem of evil, but the issue of justice, the justice of God. And that's why when they discussed it as, well, if there is if God is going to question us for our actions, it means that God could not have created our actions. It means we create our actions. So they got into the idea of who creates the action of the human being. Is it God or the human being? And they also discussed it from the point of view of the idea of free will and the idea of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the will of the creator, and what is and the idea that God only does what is good. As a matter of fact, he does not do what's good, he does the best, al-aslah, what is most suitable, so that there is nothing beyond it. So they discussed all of that under the same logical structure that existed with the idea or with the Greek philosophy. And of course, as I said, when the Sunnis discussed it, the Sunni Muslims, when they discussed it as as a refutation of the Mu'tazila, and they discussed it under the banner of that this is under the godly wisdom, if you wish, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, is able with his wisdom to bring together all aspects of pain, of justice, of mercy, of compassion in a magnificent way that reveals his wisdom. So it is not that they debated the existence of something called bad or evil, but they said that it has to be viewed within the larger scheme, the larger attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being just, being merciful, being compassionate, being wise, etc. And within that, we understand the idea of evil or the idea of the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we view it from that perspective. And this issue, by the way, the problem of evil, is a central theme or a central argument when it comes to atheism and the idea of the existence of the creator. So Anthony Flew, for example, who used to be the chief atheist, and of course then he, at the end of, later on he changed his opinion to say that there is God. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that basically this is the problem of evil became, is the biggest issue that faces creationists. And of course he refutes it by calling it later on as juvenile instances, meaning what they're referring to is not a mature thought. The people who say claim the issue of pain, etc., that is not a mature thought. And as I said, it's become a central issue, in a central theme in the claim, or in the people who argue the existence of the creator by atheists. So, for example, when Stephen Law debated William Lane Craig in 2011, he used only one argument. He did not go into anything but one argument, which is the argument of evil. When Michael Tooley debated Craig in 2010, he also declared that the central argument for atheism is the argument of evil. Michael Roos, when he debated Fazl Rana in 2013, the same thing. They said it does not have a problem with the idea of the existence of God, but the problem is with the problem of evil. So that from their perspective, from his perspective, there can be a God, but the problem is the existence of evil. So now, of course, this is not only amongst intellectuals and thinkers and people who are in this, who are involved in this discourse, but it's become even amongst the populace, amongst the masses. And it's enough for you to see, that anybody that you now, and it's often heard, yeah, if there was no God, if there's God, this merciful God, I mean, how come there's so much suffering? Look at the children dying of hunger. Look at the diseases that are here and there. Look at this and that. So how could there be God? In a very simple, very popular kind of approach when they addressed it. Lee Strobel, who's a Christian apologetic, in his book, The Case of Faith, he mentioned that the most important objections, one of the most important objections regarding the existence of God, is the issue of evil. That's the most introduced to address or to question the existence of the creator. Okay, and of course, it needs to be stated that they all start with the premise that God loves his creation. God is all merciful, is all kind, etc. Therefore, how come that there is suffering, etc. And of course, we will address it later on, the details of the argument. But to start with, this problem is no longer just a side issue. It became really an existential issue, a central theme in the in the life of people, but especially in the Western world. And this is became its existential after the age of enlightenment, and the age where the human being became the center of the universe. That the world is in the service of the human being, and in the service of number one. So everything is supposed to be in your service, and therefore the happiness of man became the center and the focal point of it. So after the age of enlightenment, you see, after this, because of the Western, and we're here with the capital W, the Western culture, the Western civilization, of secularism, and they've gone even beyond just simply a separation. But now, once the concept of creator is removed or alienated from life, the purpose of life diminished. So one of the main features of this era is that the role of life, or the purpose of life, is no more really in existence. In other words, it became, as Allah Ta'ala describes in the Quran, "In hiya illa hayatuna ad-dunya namutu wa nahya wa ma nahnu bimub'athin." It is only this world. We live and we die, and we're not going to be resurrected. So it becomes life becomes the goal in itself. To live life, to have the happiness to live life happily is the goal in itself. Okay, so anything that disturbs this life, anything that is intolerable, anything that is less than the expectations we have about how we perceive our happiness to be, it is definitely rejected, and it is definitely evil, and it's definitely bad. And of course, by the way, this is an ideological position. This is impacted by, this is a result of the Western culture, where, as I said, God is, or there's no higher purpose than life itself. And because it's an ideological position, so somebody else with a different culture, with a different background, can have a different view of life and the idea of the purpose of life. So, for example, you can have people who have, in other civilizations or other nations, you can have people whose goal is to bring glory to their country, to their families, or to please God and enter heaven. So this is, each has that point of view, and it impacts the way that they view life itself and the way they view pain. So, for example, in the people who have something, a purpose in life, even whether it's the glory of country, whether it is to bring honor to their families, whether it is to serve God, whether it is to please Him, etc. For them, pain becomes a welcomed prize for the achievement. So pain and suffering is part of the price for achievement. You do not expect to achieve and to reach higher what a regular person would do, or somebody without that goal would achieve without that. So in other words, they succeed by overcoming evil. Not that evil becomes the spoiler of life, but they succeed by overcoming it. And with a higher goal than life itself, people live with pain and overcome it. So for a non-Western person, in the one non-Western person's life, it becomes, it has a meaning, and it has pleasure in the defeat of evil, and in the defeat of bad, in the overcoming the obstacles that are in life. But if life loses its meaning, and it is not about why we are here, why we are living. It's about how we are to live, and how, exclusively. Then of course it becomes anything that spoils it becomes something that we cannot tolerate, and something that we object to. So it is really this position about that it is how how we view evil, and whether it is really a spoiler of life, etc. This is an ideological position rather than an intellectual argument against or for the existence of God. Another feature that comes with a part of this Western civilization, which is important to understand, because this idea of the problem of evil now, as I said, it has become an existential issue, and it has become a central issue even amongst the populace, amongst the masses. In addition to the fact that there is no purpose for life, but the focus is really how to live it only, rather than why are we living it. The second thing is the arrogance of man, where we think that we understand everything. The human being, especially with science, that we understand the universe, and we understand man, we understand life. In our minds, we are the masters of the universe. Charles Taylor, in his book A Secular Age, he says, with the anthropocentric turn, this sense of God's ordering presence begins to fade, because now we are a secular age. God has become less and less relevant to life. So God goes away, and who comes and who takes a place? Of course, it's the human being who takes a central role of life. So God retreats in the distance, and the human being comes and replaces him with the absolute arrogance that we are able to understand everything, and we are we are the masters of the universe, and therefore nothing should spoil our happiness, nothing should go wrong as we perceive it. Another feature or another issue of this era is that everything that first can be understood from a materialistic point of view. It's one thing to rationalize, to see why something happens, or what could be the reason for it, what are the consequences of it, the impact, etc. But from the atheists And people who do not recognize the existence of God or the Creator, because for them everything is just nothing but matter, and nothing but chemical reactions and interactions, and nothing but biology and its chemistry. And so with that, it means that there has to be an explanation for everything that we experience from a materialistic point of view. It's not that it has to have just an explanation, it has to be materialistic. And that, of course, under the banner of scientism, science can explain as time progresses. If it cannot explain it today, it will explain tomorrow. But for sure, science can explain it. And here, of course, if people who believe in God says that, I can argue, that I can prove it. If I don't have a proof for this. I cannot tell you that I can explain everything today, or I cannot prove the existence of God today, but I promise you I'll come up with a good argument tomorrow. People will laugh at us. The scientists and the intellectuals, quote unquote, the people who adopt scientism as a way, they will laugh at us. But on the other hand, they can make a claim, and they make it frequently, that, what, it is fine. We don't know it today, but we know it tomorrow, and there has to be a materialistic explanation for it. It's just a matter of time. And really, and just as a side note, it is really it is sad for anybody who's involved in science, who knows how little the human being knows, and how many times the human being was wrong. Scientists were wrong in the conclusions that they reached. That they understand that there is a room for growth and understanding. There's subjectivity in it, etc. But of course, many do not have that. And of course, when I say there is no reason, or when we say that the reason is not necessarily materialistic, it does not mean we don't search and we don't understand and we don't think. But it means that we do not expect to wrap our heads around every event that takes place in the human experience, and to be able to explain it, rationalize it in a materialistic way, because that, and as we will explain, that is much more, there's more to life than just that. So what is the argument? In its cold way, what is the argument for the idea of the problem of evil? It starts as I mentioned, they said that, well, you have four items that cannot contradict each other. They cannot exist with a contradiction. So if there is a God, complete in knowledge, meaning omniscient, if there's a God, he's complete in knowledge. There is a God complete in power, omnipotent. And there is a God who's complete in mercy, omnibenevolent. These three exist, and if evil still exists in the human life, then there concludes that there is no God. This is it. So you have a God that's all powerful, all merciful, all compassionate, and all knowledgeable, and then there should be no evil. But the fact that there is evil in life, then automatically there is no God. This is the argument that is made. Now, before addressing the argument itself, we need to define what is evil. From a human perspective, what is evil? Evil, actually, is from the point of view of the point of view of a human being. Evil is anything that brings harm, anything that brings harm or prevents good. A human being considers it evil. That can be so broadly speaking, really a toothache is considered to be evil. A car accident is viewed to be evil. Applying for a job and not getting it and not passing your interview, that is considered evil. A murder is considered evil. You lost a bigger deal, but you got a smaller one, that's evil. That is bad because you did not achieve benefit. So in other words, anything that brings you harm from your point of view, and it is really just exactly that. Most often, it is subjective and it is individual based. But if it does not bring you good, it does not, or it brings you harm as you perceive it, then that is considered to be evil. And of course, the opposite is true. If anything that brings you good, if you made a good trade deal, if you got a promotion, you got a new car, etc., that's considered to be, good. So that is really to define evil. And then if you look regardless how how much you look for a definition, but really at the end of the day, it's what the human being perceives to be, harmful to them, that they view as evil. So now, of course, they categorize evil. There are two types of evil. They say that one is what they call the natural evil. Natural evil, it means what? It is not related to a person with a free will. It is part of nature, such as earthquakes, floods, diseases. These are considered to be evil. And of course, the argument is, if God exists and he's all merciful, etc., why do these natural disasters exist? And they bring evil to the world. That's one. Of course, the second part of evil is what they call the moral evil, which means what? It's perpetrated or committed by people who have the free will. So killing, stealing, raping, all of these are committed by people freely. These are called, this is called moral evil. And of course, by the way, the moral evil is much more impacting in reality, much more impacting, much more devastating, much more long-lasting. Its effect is much longer, long-lasting on the human beings or in the society than really a natural disaster, because the nature of the natural disasters, they tend to be limited, few in number, etc. And that by, so the impact of it is not as wide or as big, as consistent, as long-lasting as the moral evil. Okay, but so how are we going to address this? We are going to address it in two ways, or in our approach will take two components. The first component, or the first, is the rational response. So we're going to address it on a rational basis. And the second is on textual basis. And I will, before commenting on the textual basis, I just want to say, when I say rational, again, just like I mentioned before in the beginning, of the discussion or the presentation, that the problem with the issue here is that it is not that it is the difficulty in replying, but the emotions that are attached to the subject. So when we talk about something that is sensitive and something that's emotional, you try to refute it in this cold, rational way. People don't, inside they'll tell you, yes, I'm convinced, but. And they find it hard to swallow emotionally, not intellectually, not, and that's where really the difficulty of the subject is. And we will talk about how to remedy that, inshallah ta'ala, towards the end. But the other thing is, when we talk about textual responses, I don't mean the textual responses to be necessarily binding for people who don't believe in Islam, but the arguments in them. The arguments in them are valid for Muslims and non-Muslims, for believers or not non-believers. That's one. The second thing is that it's in the textual response for the Muslims, it is to understand how Islam presents it, because Islam has a specific view of how we view evil and how we view life and how we view how we should live and what is good and what's bad. And that needs to be presented not just a matter of just refutation of the idea of the problem of evil as a negation to the existence of the Creator, but also that the human being, or we as human beings have, as Muslims, have a view of how the human beings should live and why, and how we deal with the issues that we deal with, or the issue of evil. So the first thing is that let's take the rational response. And to start with, we say this is the syllogism, the formal syllogism that is used in this has many problems. In other words, what they call the syllogism or the logic, the setup of the argument has many problems. First of all, it is not the right approach to study the issue of evil. Meaning, the method of syllogism, the method of putting logical setups, is not necessarily the best way, or is not immune to error in the way that you approach it. So let's take an example. I can make a statement. I say, God is all hearing and powerful and all merciful. I am sick. If he exists, he would cure me. If he exists, he would cure me. Now I'm not sick, and therefore God exists. I just reached the existence of God simply because I got cured. And the opposite of it, God is all hearing, all powerful, all merciful. I am sick. If he exists, he would cure me. Well, I'm not cured, then God does not exist. Simply because I got cured, that does not, or not cured, that made the argument exactly the opposite of the other, because of this, this setup in the argument, the introduction, etc., where if there is a problem in any of them, in any of the layers, then automatically you are going to have a wrong conclusion, or sometimes, as we just did, contradicting conclusions. But for the example that they bring, I mean, look, they start with the idea God exists. God is all merciful, all knowledgeable. When you say creator, God, that's absolute. That's mutlaq. That's absolute, unrestricted, with no conditions. He is, that's the idea of God. That God is the first, God is the last, God is independent, nothing, he depends on none, everything depends on him. There is no limitation to his power, no conditions for his existence. That is God, always there, always will be, etc., etc. And then you come to this unrestricted God, absolute God, and you come and you say, provided that there is no evil. Automatically, you just contradicted the first statement. Because if you restrict God and you put a condition that he can exist provided that there's no evil, they just restricted God himself. And that is, from a logical point of view, is erroneous. In reality, the right point, the right argument, the right approach to discussing the existence of God and the issue of evil is to start with not the issue of the evil or good, etc., because the argument will, inshallah ta'ala, will be developed a bit more, but to start with what we sense. And this we discussed in previous sessions, that you start with, if you want to reach a conclusive idea about your existence, about whether the world has a creator or not, you start by looking at what your senses can see, and you analyze what is under your senses. And what's under your senses, if you come across man, life, and the universe, and you see that all of them had a start. All of them, and we discussed this in other sessions, all of them had a start. All of them, and anything has a start, will have an end. But everything in it, it is set up in such a way that they're working in a certain system. The interdependencies within the universe, the interdependency between the human being and the universe, life and how it begins and how it's sustained from the universe, etc., etc. We see that this is a system, and that rationally, not logically, not based on any imagined, structured, or real or unreal, naturally, you will reach to what anything that had a beginning something must have started it. Anything that is in need, somebody must have provided it that need, for it to exist. So if we say that, life starts at a certain point, automatically you ask, well, if it started, then who started it? So that is the right way of approach to say that there is a creator or there is no creator. That you discuss it based on your senses, and rationally, intellectually, you reach with the what we said, the basic thoughts, or the primary thoughts, or way of thinking that every human being has, that if there's something started, something must have started it. That automatically reaches us, that we get to the point that there is a creator. And if there is a creator who created all of this, it means that he is all capable, and he is all wise, and he is all knowledgeable, because these are the requirements of what he created, and this is the right way, where we do not come to something that we notice and then we start saying, because of that, it is not there. There is deficiency in the world, it's called evil, and therefore there is no God. As a matter of fact, I can argue that because there is deficiency in the world, there is a God. Because without that, if the universe was perfect, if the world was perfect, you don't need a God. But the fact that it is less than perfect, the fact that it is in need of the sustenance and the maintenance, etc., that means that there is something or somebody behind it. And so this wisdom, and the fact that Allah Ta'ala, the Creator, created all of this, we say that it demonstrates His wisdom, that He has wisdom, and this wisdom He can manifest some of it to us. He can tell us what it is, or He can not let us know about it, and becomes beyond our senses, and we do not understand it. But the idea is, if we don't know it, we don't speculate. But so the right approach to discussing the existence of God is not to address one of one incident or one issue, it's called evil, decide that there is no creator. The right approach is to actually look at, sense your existence, sense everything that's around you, and start thinking about it based on the information that you have, the priori information that you have, that the cause and effect, the idea of the what we discussed in other sessions. This is a number two. The number three is that when we say that if God is all merciful, there should be no evil. If there is evil, then God does not exist. Actually, this is the wrong argument. Again, from another angle, not only the idea of restriction, but also you're not really, the jump should not be from there is evil to no God. It should be there is evil, then God does not have mercy. Because the reason why what you're negating, or what the person would be negating, is the fact that God is merciful. We're saying if God is all merciful, why is He allowing evil? So if evil exists, then God is not all merciful. One can argue that, and that mercy is merely an attribute of the Creator, Himself. It is not the existence of the Creator. And that's another fallacy in the argument itself. And of course, by the way, and this is where really the seepage of the Judeo-Christian background about God loving the world, and for example, and we'll discuss it when we talk about the textual evidence. But when they say that God, as the Christians said, that God loves the world and loves people, and therefore sacrificed His Son, etc., etc. So that love, so when people talk about His mercy, this is really a textual attribute, is not an intellectual attribute, even though some scholars said that, and some intellectuals said that, well, the fact that the harmony that the world is created in, and the compassion that human beings and every living organism experiences, etc., shows that God is merciful and all merciful. But at the end of the day, it is really, if you negate, because of the problem of evil, you would negate that attribute of mercy. You would not be negating the very existence of the Creator, and that is the issue, the problem with this argument. And by the way, this is, in my view, my humble view, this is enough. That just the idea of evil does not negate the existence of God. Evil only negates the mercy of God. That's enough for an answer, because if we're talking about the existence of God, we're talking about the mercy. Now, why is God not interfering? Who knows? Why is God allowing it? Again, it's part of His mercy. Okay, it does not exist. And because I can argue, strictly speaking, you can have a cruel God. And astaghfirullah, I'm a Muslim, we're Muslims, we don't say that. But for argument's sake, just to be, strictly speaking, you can have a God who is not merciful. You can have a God who is unjust, but He's a creator. He's the one who established everything. You can absolutely have that. So the idea, the negation of evil, or the existence of evil, only negates the existence of the mercy of God, not the God Himself, the Creator Himself. And as I said, this is enough to refute the argument that there is no God because of the problem of evil. In reality, in their minds, they are refuting the God of the Bible and the God of the Old Testament. They are refuting that idea, that God is all merciful, etc. And that's a textual, a textual attribute, and which we Muslims have, that God is all merciful. And we'll talk about a little bit of that later on, inshallah ta'ala. Another thing, actually, I'll flip it a bit and say that I can say because there is evil, it proves the existence of God. Because when we say that, um, according to atheists who have atheists and Darwinists nowadays, that we are nothing but chemical reactions and interactions, and we're nothing but biology, cells, chemistry, and energy, floating into each other, etc., and interacting with each other. Then there is nothing beyond the matter. There is nothing beyond the what you sense, what is under a microscope. There is nothing beyond that. For anybody to formulate an idea called evil, which is a non-materialistic idea, it is a non-matter idea. For anybody to say that there is a evil, automatically I would say, where did you get that from? And especially that it's all human beings feel that. They feel that this is bad, this is unjustified, this is evil that was committed. How could somebody do this to that standard? That is not a chemical, part of the chemical structure, that there is a gene or there is a hormone that does that. Even though the body might do reactions when that emotion is felt, but the criteria, the mental standard that human beings have, atheists and believers, young and old, when they see something that is that and they describe it as evil, the question is, where did that come from? And I'm saying the fact that we all humans recognize something called evil, they have to they have to acknowledge that that standard came from outside of the human being or outside of matter. So in reality, when people find it so bad that there is evil, when people find evil to be so bad, it's because of the absence of good. And again, just like evil, the absence of good, and to decide that there is in other words, excuse me, to decide that this is evil, they are recognizing the absence of good. And by the way, that means that good is the standard, the original case, not evil. It's the evil is the exception to the rule. It is not the rule. The rule is goodness. And that's why for example, look at the ratio between the times of earthquakes and natural disasters versus none, crimes versus none, crime, how many crimes, let's say, in a year versus the times without crimes, how many people are sick versus the people who are not sick, etc. So I mean, this is common, I think, understood. Reality is the fundamental situation, the standard situation is that it is all good, and the exception to it is evil, or something that the human being perceives as bad. So in other words, for you to recognize that there is evil, you have to recognize that there is good. And just like I say, who defined what is good, what is bad, or what is evil, and where did that come from? I ask the same question. Where did these people, where did this goodness come from as the norm and as the standard amongst the people, and they recognize it as good? And these, by the way, the idea of good and evil pose and constitute a challenge to atheists themselves, not to believers or creationists, the people who believe in creationism. The staunch atheist Jean-Paul Sartre acknowledged that by saying the atheist finds extreme difficulty in the absence of God. The atheist finds extreme difficulty in the absence of God, because in his absence, it's impossible to find objective moral values. There has to be basic inherent good. Basic inherent good, that is defined that's given by God, by the Creator. In his absence, on what basis do you define good and bad? Where does that definition come from, as I just mentioned? And who defines it, and on what basis? And you find it that across the board. Normally people agree on that this is bad, that this is good, etc. So when we talk about the idea of evil and the idea of good, actually these are arguments against atheism, and atheism has tough time defining good and bad in the absence of the concept of God. And that we mentioned again before, when in several arguments with or several debates, when people were talking about what is morally acceptable. Is this evil? Is it evil to barbecue little babies? That's their examples, not mine. You know, I mean, really, horrible examples. But it's just to show, and you will have the atheists giving you, there's no moral standard, because you have to be consistent. There is no moral standard, objective standard to say, yeah, this is bad, you know, and things of this sort. So again, without the existence of God, you cannot even define what is evil and what is good. You cannot define, you know, where that definition came from. How did you achieve it, etc. How do you qualify, or how do you explain the existence of this feeling in the human being? Okay. Now, if we're talking about the attributes of God, when we take it into, you know, because we said mercy, God is all merciful, all knowledgeable, etc. Let's do a couple of things. We need to take two things into consideration. One is that we do not, you know, when we talk about His wisdom, God's knowledge, God's compassion, do not compare it to ours. When we say God is compassion, do not compare Him to your compassion. And of course, I don't say here the compassion of a human being, because all of us, you and I, each one of us, you know, will have a different definition of what's compassion, and will differ in the standards of what compassion and what is not. So it becomes wrong, and this is what most people now, you know, do, is that they take whatever event that they see, and they put it from the prism of the human being, from within the point of view of the human being, and based on that they decide this is good and this is bad, this is evil, this is, you know, and they accept or they do not accept. God's wisdom cannot be compared to ours, especially that we know, you know, that ours changes all the time. The second thing is that when we talk about the attributes, if you notice always, I mean, when the problem of evil comes, only the knowledge, the ability, and the idea of mercy, the attribute of mercy is mentioned. Why don't we mention other attributes, such as His justice, such as His, you know, such as His wisdom? That because when we just focus on these and then we neglect the other attributes, then you're imagining a God, you know, if you wish, a partial God. You're imagining something that is not complete, that is not right, that's not complete. So if you want the complete picture, we say that He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is all wise, and His knowledge is not like ours, it's all encompassing, and His mercy is not like ours, He expresses it the way that He wants, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, so, and that He is just, so nothing happens without being rewarded or punished based on whether it's good or bad. You know, all of that has to be taken into consideration when we talk about the attributes of God. It is not, we don't limit ourselves to 2 or 3 attributes and we say, this is it. Okay. The other point that has to be also mentioned is that our criteria of good and bad, what we deem as evil and what is deemed as bad, you know, meaning harmful to us, beneficial to us, it is something that's limited in scope and ever changing. You know, and as a matter of fact, sometimes it changes within the day. You know, it depends on your emotional status, your emotional, you know, setup today. It can be something that varies as you age. It's something that varies as you learn, as you grow in knowledge, etc. As different events interfere. The consequence of the event itself. Sometimes it is the base, you know, meaning our judgment, our standard of what is good and bad, what is evil, what is good, that is always varying. And so therefore, how can you, you know, subject the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to our standards of good and bad? But even then, let's take some examples of when we talk about evil, and how evil is actually, there is nothing called absolute evil. It's always relative, it's always within a context, and it's never pure evil. Take an example, when we talk about natural evil, and this is just a quick example of natural evil. So we take volcanoes and volcano eruptions. Are they evil? Well, they are, because they wipe out cities and they kill thousands of people. For example, Tambora volcano in Indonesia that erupted in 1815 and killed, according to history, the History Channel. It killed over 100,000 people, directly or indirectly, but 100,000 people, around 100,000 people got killed. Oh, that's bad. But is that bad? Is that bad? Well, yes, but so is that absolute evil? Is that completely evil? Well, not if we know what volcanoes do. What do volcanoes, when they erupt, what do? They actually relieve the pressure from the earth. They cool the atmosphere to control the temperature for human life. They form land so that we can live on. And actually they produce water, which other people cannot live on. They have when they erupt and they have the dust in the air, which stays for years, it's excellent for to fertilize land. So when we look at it from a specific atomic view of 100,000 people, and I'm mentioning the worst in the history recorded, 100,000 people died, versus now, when you put it in perspective on the human level, does that become evil? Does that become something that is that is bad? When we think of pain, we always think of pain as evil, as something that's bad, and we try to run away from it, etc. And why do we feel pain? Why do we feel that the complex, the nervous system is nothing but a complex network, and it's matter. It's all why does it do what it does? Well, imagine life without pain. Imagine life without pain. Somebody who wrote about this is Dr. Paul Brand, a leprosy specialist. And leprosy people, stop, patients, they stop feeling the pain, and they destroy their bodies because they cannot feel the pain. They spent millions or tons of money, him and his teams, just to develop gloves, that would send a signal to the brain to tell them that there is pain, so that the patient would pay attention to it. By the way, in the tip of your finger, you have more than 1,000 sensors, and they spent all that time and money to generate, gloves with 20 sensors only, so that the people would feel the pain. It is the pain that makes you go to the doctor to get checked up, so that you can, be treated for a disease. It is the pain that wakes you up at night so that you can take care of it. It's the pain that makes you run away from harmful things. It's the pain that makes you not burn alive because you run away from fire. It is the pain that, etc. You get the idea. The point here is that when we look at pain, we think of it as something that is horrible, but in reality, as Dr. Paul Rand says, that it is the greatest gift to man. Without pain, you cannot really survive, you cannot function. And so is that evil? Somebody can say, well, my father was killed by a virus, so this is evil. Well, we don't, and God knows about it, therefore there's no God, right? But the idea is that we don't know what the virus was created for, and what the purpose of the virus is, and what impact will it have on not just the person's father, but other human beings, the earth, etc. We do not know that. Evil here it's a subjective matter. It's not absolute. It's not absolute. Now, you can also take events, and I just want to mention really one example, and this is in the Quran. Again, even for somebody who does not believe in the Quran and want to look at it, it's the same rational argument. Let me tell you a little bit about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf is a prophet, of course, and his father loved him. His siblings, Yusuf's siblings, thought that his father loved Yusuf more than they did. So the love of the father of Yusuf to Yusuf, Yaqub alayhi salam loved Yusuf, and that's of course that's good. Is that good? That's good. Well, the siblings felt jealous, so they decided that they're going to kill Yusuf, so that why they would stay only with the father. So now, is that love, was it good or is it bad? So now the brothers took Yusuf alayhi salam. They did not kill him. They ended up throwing him in where? In the well. When they threw him in the well, is that good? No, of course it's bad. They threw him in the well. Well, but actually, past the travelers passed by the well and they picked up Yusuf alayhi salam. Is that good? Actually, yes, it's good. They saved his life. But wait, he became a slave because they enslaved him and they sold him. Is that good? No, that's bad. But where he ended up where? In the house of Al-Aziz, in the house of a very influential man in Egypt. They took him to Egypt, so he will end up in the house. Is that good? Yeah, well, that's you know, that he lived in a very good, in a palace. So was that good? Yes, it was good. Well, no, because he ended up being framed for that he was accused of attacking the wife of Al-Aziz, the wife of the man who kept him in his house. So that's bad? Yes, because he ended up in jail. Well, was that bad in jail? Well, he met the two people in jail, the two men, and he invited them to Islam, basically, to the message of Tawheed. And one of them got executed, the other one ended up serving the king. So now Yusuf is in jail alone. Is that good? No, it is bad. He's there. But then the king comes and takes him out of jail and makes him the king of Egypt. So now the question is, where is the bad and where is the good? Where is the bad in this? Yes, you look at detail, they put him in a well. That is bad. Because that's the atomic view, that's the atomic thinking, that I'm looking at this partiality, and this is the human mind. This is the human mind. You only look at details, you never look at the bigger picture. Even the bigger picture is limited from your view, because you don't have the 360. You don't have the 360-degree view of the event. That's one, and you don't know the future of the event. You only know the present. Nobody knows the future. So therefore, the idea of us humans knowing what is good and what is bad, it is really ridiculous, because we do not have the full picture of the event, nor do we know what it means or what it happens or what will happen later on in the future and how it will impact others. The idea here is that another point that needs to be brought up is that the way the West views God is wrong. Often, by the way, I mean, God is presented, maybe again, it's back to its Christian, and Judeo-Christian background, because when you have Israel who wrestled with God, the one who wrestled with God, and you have one that views God as a man. God created man in his own image. So the idea here is that the view of God is simply as, like a wise man, an old man, somebody who gets tired, somebody who gets who regrets doing things that they did. In other words, really just a smart human, a smart man, a wise man, but not absolute in that sense. If somebody does something and regrets it after that, how can he be absolute? If somebody, somebody commits a sin, the other one gets punished, how can he be, So that view, they allowed the atheists and in the Western mindset, it allowed them to start comparing the justice of God to their own, the actions of God to their own. And rather than viewing God from the point of view of the intellectual, what the intellect leads you to, that we know that God, whatever you can think of, God is not, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he's above and beyond any limitation of the human being. And the fact that because whatever you think he is not, it's because whatever your limited mind can generate can never be unlimited. It can always be something that has a cap, that is always bound within time and space. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond time and beyond space. So how do we Muslims in Islam, how do we view the issue of evil? We not just the issue of evil, how do we view life? Because the problem here is that when we talk about, again, the Western mindset, we're talking about everything that has to be materialistic, everything has to be in the service and happiness of the human being, etc. There is nothing beyond matter. There is nothing beyond him. The experience, the bad experience somebody goes through, they're simply bad experiences. That's where they end. But in Islam, we believe that everything, man, life, the universe, everything is created by the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is encompassing in knowledge, encompassing in mercy, complete in ability and power and wisdom. That we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create a perfect world. He did not create a perfect world, nor did he claim it. He did not say that I created a world without pain, without suffering. He did not say that. He just created, he's created in a magnificent way, and that is it. You know, as a matter of fact, a world that's better than this world is in the Jannah, is in heaven. You know, where in heaven there is no pain and there is no suffering and there is no disease, but that is in heaven. So God actually said He created this and He created that. So from our point of view, Muslims, you know, we never view life as perfect. We view it as created by the Creator. And this Creator is all powerful, all kind, all wise, etc., etc., as He subhanahu wa ta'ala described Himself, you know, and He created this world and He created the heavens. And we believe also that man is not the center of the universe. It's not that everything revolves around the human being. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا, Allah subjugated or made things suitable for you on earth to use, to benefit from. It does not mean we're the center of the universe. It does not mean that everything is about us, you know. Otherwise, we would not be forbidden from harming the earth. It's not everything is about us. We are supposed to improve and make the world better, the universe better, if you wish, not destroy it for our own expense. And we believe also in Islam that God created man, meaning the human being, with a purpose, and the purpose is to worship Him, to obey Him, and to do the imara, to improve, as I just mentioned, to improve the earth and make it a better place for the next generation and the next generation. Allah Ta'ala, the Creator, we do not believe that He created us to be happy. On the contrary, you know, in other words, to be happy in the sense that there is no pain. He created us, or that there is no test. Allah Ta'ala says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created man in constant struggle. He tells us, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تَرْجِعُونَ. And that do you think that we created you, you know, aimlessly, without any goal, and you will not come back to us? Why would we go back to us but for accountability? Why would we go back to Allah? It's for accountability. أَحَسِبَ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Does the human being think that they will be left alone, meaning with no do's and don'ts, etc.? So we are created for a purpose. And the Jannah, the heaven, is for the people who hold, when they go through these trials, when they go through these tribulations, that they are rewarded the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the obedience and the Jannah. So Allah Ta'ala says, وَفِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي الْأَنفُسُ وَتَلَذُّ الْأَعْيُنُ وَأَنْتُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. That, and in it, whatever you desire and whatever you want to see, and you are living in it forever. Okay, لا يمسهم فيها نصب وما هم منها بمخرجين. And no harm will follow your tiredness in it, and you will not be leaving it. So all of that is what to say that this is how we are supposed to live this world. So we are not saying the world is the focus is not just on how, it is the why we live. Why God created us? Why Allah Ta'ala created us? What are we supposed to do on this earth? From there, we can say that, okay, the consequence of it is this way or this way. But it is the how is only to reach the why, meaning God who created us to worship Him. How we live it is the way He subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, so that we can please Him and enter Al-Jannah. As a matter of fact, you know, and Islam, by the way, does not view that we are the children of God, we are the beloved ones of God, you know, and therefore everything for ourselves, we are the center of the universe. You know, Allah Ta'ala criticizes the people who say this. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ وَالنَّصَارَى نَحْنُ أَبْنَاءُ اللَّهِ وَأَحِبَّاؤُهُ. And the Jews and the Christians said that we are the children of God and His beloved ones. قُلْ, you know, say to Muhammad, say, فَلِمَ يُعَذِّبُكُمْ بِذُنُوبِكُمْ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ مِّمَّا خَلَقَ. Say, then why does He punish you due to your sins? Rather, you are only creation. You are human beings of His creation. He did not just create the human beings, He created other things, and you are only the human beings of His creation. So, يَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He forgives whomever He wishes, and He punishes whomever He wishes. وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا وَإِلَيْهِ الْمَصِيرُ. And to Allah belongs the ownership of the heavens and the earth and what's between them, and everything shall return to him. So the point here is that Allah Ta'ala did not say, in Islam, we do not have that God loves us and God created us. Allah Ta'ala loves the believers. Allah Ta'ala does not love the human being as a human being, loves the believers, and loves the obedient ones, as he tells us. The other thing is that another point that Islam emphasizes is that everyone will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So meaning what? There is accountability. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. Whoever does an atom's worth of good will see it. Whoever does an atom's worth of bad will see it. What does it mean? It means that everybody will be held accountable. And this has an impact. This has a result. That when we say that, somebody did good, you don't expect to be rewarded for it necessarily in this world. You expect it in the hereafter. And when you do bad, rest assured, if you're not caught for it, because of it, and you're not punished in this world, you will be punished in the hereafter. And the people who are subject to this harm, subject to this injustice, they know for a fact that if you don't get your right in this world, you will get it in the hereafter. That's the idea of accountability. That's the idea of the accountability. And of course, the other thing, Islam dictates that it is the responsibility of you and me to make sure that goodness exists and evil does not. And that's what commanding good and forbidding evil is. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are indeed the best ummah that's out to mankind. What do? You command good and you forbid evil, and you believe in Allah. So it is our responsibility as Muslims, as believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to enjoin good and forbid evil, to protect the innocent, to punish the transgressor, etc. This is part of the human responsibility on earth, and that's part of the system which Allah Ta'ala created. Just one last point one last section is that there is an impact. What is the impact of this belief, on the mental health of the human being? The belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's all wise and He's all merciful comforts the believers. Compare that with atheism or in the atheists. What do you refer to? What do you rely on? What do you fall on when there is something bad? When you believe that Allah Ta'ala is merciful and Allah Ta'ala is testing you in this world, and the way that you're supposed to hold tight to His commands, and you rely on Him consistently, and you do not let go of His, and that there is a wisdom behind it. There is a reason behind it. And this reason that you might understand, you might not understand. And when you don't understand it, you accept that wisdom. And you accept it, hoping that God will reward you for that acceptance on the day of judgment. That is a healthy attitude when you deal with problems, versus somebody who is unable to rely on it. If it's only simply chemicals and reactions, what do you do when you are in trouble? What do you do to comfort yourself when life is aimless, has absolutely nothing, and no one is behind it? The other thing is that you believe that whatever you do not get in this dunya, you get in the akhirah, meaning that if there is injustice that was done to you, and Allah Ta'ala tests you in ways that you don't encounter, you might not understand, but the fact that you know that قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَوْلَانَا, that it is nothing will happen to us but what Allah has written. So if this is written, who is going to object? That mindset, something happened to me, and I am hoping that Allah Ta'ala will reward me for my patience and for my perseverance, in the hereafter. How do the people who do not have that to rely on, what is there to hold them over? If it's a chemical reaction that's only taking place, what is the solution then? More chemicals, maybe more medicine? So you have people who are relying on drugs and relying on relaxers and anxiety medication, etc., etc. And this is I'm saying not necessarily that every time somebody uses it there is a problem in belief, etc. But I'm saying this becomes the cure for anything like any challenge that the human being has. Just to conclude, the existence of evil and pain do not negate the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. only they challenge one, they can challenge one of his attributes, which is the mercy. And then when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, is not like ours, and his wisdom is not like ours, and his knowledge is not like ours, then the idea of comparison, what does not suit me therefore should not be, then that automatically falls sideways. We have a general rule: ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. There is nothing like him, and he is all hearing and all seeing. That statement summarizes the idea, that the ayah of the Quran Kareem, that summarizes how we view Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we look at his knowledge, we look at his wisdom, don't compare it to yours and mine, and you say that, this is why, how come there is this evil, how come there is this bad or that good. The other thing is that, of course, Allah ta'ala is not you and me, and Allah ta'ala is not one of us where we can say, why did you do this? Well, how come you did this? Why did you pick on me? Why did you choose me? Why did you test me? Why didn't you test the other one? What's wrong? What did I do? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says also in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He is never to be questioned for what he does. This is his ownership. This is his kingdom. This is his creation. He does with it what he wishes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above and beyond cruelty, wal-'iyadu billah. And Allah ta'ala is above and beyond, aimlessness. He does things for a reason, whether you and I comprehend it or not. But لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He is not to be asked for what he does, and we, all of us, are to be questioned for it. The other point is that there is no absolute good and evil. Everything is relative. Everything is within a context, and that you can sit and speculate, and many people sit and speculate about, for example, is death evil? Yeah, somebody who loses a loved one will come and say, that's bad, that views it as evil. But if we don't die, can you imagine the impact on earth? Can you imagine what that does to the rest of mankind? Can the earth sustain us? Can humanity survive if people lived and lived and lived on and on and on? In reality, it is what we view as evil is, one, subjective, and two, it is limited within our to our knowledge and our reasoning. To properly address the issue of evil, we have to put things in perspective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the universe. Allah ta'ala is the creator of everything, and we are not the center of that universe. We are only part of his creation, and our role is to live according to what he wishes and to accept whatever he wishes for us, hoping that on the day of judgment we'll be rewarded for it. And of course, always we ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala, رَبَّنَا وَلَا تُحَمِّلْنَا مَا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا بِهِ. Oh Allah, and do not give us a burden that we cannot handle. So this is in as I mentioned before, the argument itself for the issue of evil, it is not difficult, but rather it is more emotional and more, it's intertwined and mixed up with the emotions and the intellect at the same time, with the erroneous logical setup, as we mentioned before. If anybody has any questions, insha'Allah ta'ala, we can for the climate change, part of it, we're saying that we have a certain responsibility for the destruction. We are ordered not to destroy the earth. And where humanity has reached right now, it's really is under the capitalist system, where short-term profit, where benefit at the expense of for the shareholders at the expense of humanity. That attitude is what really has led a lot to the where we are right now. And as it's very apparent. Even though study after study comes and says we need to do this to fix this and that, they come back and they tell you, well, we need to raise the income for this country or that. We need to have people benefit. It's all about materialism over and over. So, and this, of course, in Islam, we don't, in Islam, we have to take that into consideration. We're supposed to build and to improve the world, not to destroy it. Not to destroy it. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that and look at the exaggeration here. If one of you is about to plant, has in his hand, a branch, a tree, and is about to plant it, and the day of judgment is coming, plant it. It's still with that. So a very different perspective. Any questions? وفيك بارك. وياكم. خير إن شاء الله تعالى. So let me quit while I'm ahead, I guess. If there's no question, inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. And if there is any question or comments later on, please do send it or post it. Send it as a private message, I guess, and somebody, inshallah ta'ala, will get in touch with you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.